Evening, everyone. So I'm not muted, so that's good. So yes, I thought we'd have a little discussion about Tory chicken runs. It's called chicken running when you try to abandon your existing constituency and find a safer seat elsewhere because you think you're going to, or you're going to have more of a problem winning that seat at the next election. And there's quite a few Tories doing this. Now, just to sort of, Derek did actually mention the report on destitution. I think you mean the Roundtree Foundation report. Bring that up later on, as always. We'll do other topics later on. But I just want to point out where we are at the moment. Now, this is Jamie Wallace behind me. You may or may not recognise him. He is the latest Tory MP to try and get a seat elsewhere. Now, what is causing a lot of this chicken running, the excuse for it, is because quite a lot of boundaries are changing. A lot of constituencies are changing their demographics. Now, in some cases, it will make it easier for the Conservatives to win, but in other cases, it won't. So in the case of Jamie Wallace here, his boundary changing, he denies that he's moved. Well, I'll tell you what he's doing, first of all. So he is a Conservative MP in Wales, Bridgend, I think. And he has suggested that he wants to find a completely different seat to fight. Not one nearby, but one not even in Wales, in England. He's not even sure he'll get one, but he's actively on the lookout for one. And he denies that it's anything to do with the fact that it'll be harder for him to win his seat at the next election with the boundary changes. But he did say, but it's because the character of the constituency will be different. What he means is there'll be a crap load more people who aren't going to vote Conservative is what he actually means. But he's also got a whatchamacallit, where he tries to find his other seat will inevitably put some other Conservatives' noses out of joint. If I just show you the problem. Now, in terms of what the Conservatives are looking at in the polls, there's a whole range. And as people will know, whenever I do videos on like different pollsters and things like that, when it comes to voting intention over the last few elections, the ones who have, broadly speaking, been pretty good have been YouGov and Ipsos Mori. Those are the ones I say broadly, certainly when it comes to the Labour and Conservative seats, generally get it fairly close. Now, that doesn't mean to say they get every seat predicted accurately, by no means. In fact, at the last election, the results were at the upper end of YouGov's predictions, but it was within that range. But they're both suggesting very different things at the moment. Both Ipsos and YouGov have produced a voting intention poll this week, which is not unusual for YouGov, but it is for Ipsos because they're very different polling companies and they use different methods. Ipsos don't do that regularly. I plugged it in. If you go onto electoral calculus, you can actually put your own predictions in. So if you plug in a poll, it will sort of predict what they're going to be getting. And this is it. YouGov on the left, Ipsos on the right. Now, Ipsos have a much... The YouGov predictions, I strongly suspect, are well out, if I'm going to be honest. I don't think Labour are going to get over 500 seats, even if there were an election held tomorrow. I don't just mean, because the polls are going to tighten as we get to the close to the election, which they will. And for those who are wanting to know why the polls are likely to tighten as we get close to the election, it's not because of people getting cold feet and going, oh, I'm not going to vote for Labour after all. It's largely because at the moment, there are a lot of don't knows. So when you look at these polls, they take out the don't knows because they don't know. We don't know who they're going to vote for. Opinion, I did a video on this a couple of weeks ago, I think. Opinion tried to take account of the don't knows, but, there's no sensible method for doing so. And they end up flattering the Conservatives. It goes too far the other way. So that's why the polls will tighten. There's a load of people at the moment not saying who they'll vote for. A lot of 2019 Conservative voters not saying who they'll vote for because they don't know. But when it comes to the election, a lot of them are going to vote. And a good number of them will decide actually they'll just stick with the Conservatives for whatever reason. But you can see even on Ipsos, which at the moment is maybe slightly the other way, it's still looking at the Conservatives winning 193 seats. So in terms of today's polling, like this week's polling, YouGov have got the Conservatives winning 71 seats. Well, that's probably it's not. They're not going to do that badly. Ipsos have them winning 193 seats. I actually suspect that'd be a good result for them. It might well be more than it might be near 150. Viv just saying there, Ipsos Mori rang up yesterday, wanted my partner to record his reactions to various media over a week. Partner refused. I keep hoping they'll ask me about my politics. Yeah, I do that. Someone just mentioned Stats for Lefties, right? There's loads of pollsters you shouldn't even listen to. Stats for Lefties is not even a pollster, right? It's just they completely embarrassed themselves this week. They tried to suggest that Labour's basically lost 95% of their Muslim support or something, and it's like based on a Twitter poll. There's plenty of operators out there that are not remotely credible, not at all. In fact, I've actually tried to explain to this person where they're going wrong all the time, and sometimes they'll get back to you. They just don't. They haven't got a clue. They haven't got a clue. But even in terms of professional pollsters, many of them are really poor. Like, pay no attention to People polling, pay no attention to Delta poll, pay no attention to Redfield and Wilton when it comes to voting intention. Now, that's not to say that some of these pollsters are utterly awful at everything they do, but I'm talking specifically about voting intention because that's really hard to model. And, most pollsters really don't know what they're doing. These two are not bad, but even these two at the moment massively disagree. But I will say in Ipsos Mori's favour, they are they're the only ones not inflating Reform UK's. I would suspect the main reason why YouGov are probably inflating Labour's credentials effectively is because they're inflating Reform UK's. All the online pollsters are giving Reform UK far too much of a higher share of the vote. Ipsos Mori, it comes out more like 4%, which is more reasonable. And even that's probably higher than they will get. And the thing is, of course, if you inflate Reform UK's vote share, what are Reform UK doing? Taking votes off the Conservatives. So if Reform UK do better, the Conservatives do worse, and Labour do better. And that's why there is this. I think the difference in these polls here is probably more to do with the fact that YouGov and other online pollsters are inflating Reform UK rather than inflating Labour's vote share, if you see what I mean. But anyway, the media keeps saying it'll be a hung parliament. Yeah, there's no. Labour would have to properly melt down for that to happen. The Tories think that they're hoping for a miracle. There's no miracle coming next year, is there? Like, in terms of unexpected economic news, bad things can happen. When has there ever been unexpected good economic news? Good economic news is it's always as a result, without me being an economic historian here, but it occurs to me that good economic news is always the result of careful planning and management, whereas bad economic news can be just something going wrong, like a war or a global banking crash that people just didn't price in. So things like that can happen suddenly, but good economic news doesn't happen suddenly. It just doesn't, does it? It never does. The Tories hoping for something spectacular to happen next year. It's not going to happen. The best they can hope for is Labour somehow slip on a banana skin. That's really it. But anyway, that's just the background. So this is why you've now got a load of Conservative MPs who want to still be MPs after the election thinking, my seat's in trouble. Because even if you look at the Ipsos one, it doesn't look good for a lot of Conservatives. At the moment, there's something like, is it 300? Hang on, how many Tory MPs are there now? I keep losing track because they keep suspending them. State of the Party's House of Commons. So there are 351 Conservative MPs. There may be the odd independent who will have the whip back at some point. So a little bit over 350 MPs. Even on Ipsos, they're losing over 150. So it's 150 of them. Some of them are stepping down, right? But some of them are not. Some of them want to be an MP. And if they can find an excuse to chicken run somewhere else, they will do. But this is causing a lot of consternation. And I'm not just doing this because it sort of makes sense there would be consternation. I'm actually basing this on, there's been a report in the Financial Times talking about the fact that this is putting the backs up of a lot of Conservatives. First of all, it annoys the local activists if your MP buggers off. And as it makes the point in the article, the reason for that is it means you're less likely to win the seat. Now, what that is about is the like individual premium. So if you look at election results and you look at, for example, when an MP first wins a seat, take Nadine Dorries, for example. Nadine Dorries goes on about the fact that she won her seat whenever, and she increased her majority year on year. She says, I increased my majority over this time. And it's like, yeah, you and everyone else. That is quite common for MPs. It's very common for an MP to win a seat as a new candidate and then improve that lead as long as it's a reasonably comfortable seat. And the reason for that is because then there are some people who are voting for the candidate, and as long as they like you, as long as they feel that you are their local MP and they're happy for you to be their local MP, then your name adds a little bit as well. Which is why I talk about the constituency I'm going to move to when the new constituencies are set up is it's called it's a terrible name, Doncaster East and Isle of Axholme. But it's going to be a Conservative leaning marginal. And our candidate, someone called, I've forgotten his name. Lee someone. I'm going to say Lee Pincher, but I don't know whether I'm thinking of Chris Pincher. Lee something anyway. And he will win the next election. He's doing the work. He's putting the yards in. He will win that election. But my worry is what happens in future years. So what he's going to have to do, if he wants to stay as an MP for some time and without chicken running somewhere else, what he's going to have to do is build up his profile. So what happens is you have an MP elected, they build up their local profile, the locals get to like them, and then the non-partisan voters, you get some voters who flip between Labour and the Conservatives or vote somewhere else. But the ones who aren't that bothered, Conservative or Labour, but they will vote for what they think is a good local MP, they'll vote for you. So you'll get more votes that way. So then if your local MP who's built up that premium disappears to another seat, you've got two problems for that party. First of all, the seat, like Jamie Wallace, if I put him back up, the seat he's leaving, which I'm pretty sure is Bridgend, the seat he's leaving has got to get a new candidate now. Well, that new candidate will not have that voter premium because they're not established. So all of that is gone, which means it's more likely that the Conservatives will lose that seat. But then the seat he goes to, he might, because he might not, because at the end of the day, he's a feckless idiot, let's be honest. But he's built a name up for himself. Let's say that he goes somewhere else and that somewhere else decides to adopt him as the candidate instead of the more established local for whatever reason. I don't think they probably will. I can't really think of any appeal to him. But let's say they do, then he doesn't have that voter premium in his new seat because he's the new candidate now. So effectively, the Conservatives lose two of those established MP premiums in terms of vote. And when if you were talking about a time when the Conservatives were in the ascendancy, it won't matter that much. But then if they're in the ascendancy, you won't have so much chicken running. The issue is that you're now creating in two completely different seats the wipeout of that voter premium because the established MP is moving, so they lose it in that place, and they're going somewhere new, so you don't get it in that place either, which means the Conservatives are more likely to lose them. Craig says, it's hard to make activists motivated by making it clear that their hard work is all going towards letting someone else have a cushy job when they don't need to do anything for their area. Well, also just the general idea, like if you're going to say to your local party, your activists, I'm not looking to stand in this seat. I'm going to go somewhere else. You know, you're basically saying to them, I think you're buggered, mate. I think you're buggered. Because there's no good reason to move somewhere else unless you think the challenge is too great where you are. In fact, Lee Pitcher, thank you. I knew Pincher wouldn't be right. Lee Pitcher, thank you very much. I should know that. I just had Pincher in my head for some reason. So yeah, so he needs to build up a voter premium to win future elections, because the seat I'm going to be in it will be a marginal seat, but it's conservative leaning. If you look at, all the breakdown of different areas, it's going to be easier for a Conservative to win it than a Labour candidate. So he's going to have to build up a reputation as a good local MP. He said that Jamie Wallace had a said load of controversies around him. Well, yeah, so for those who don't know, he crashed his car into something or other. I can't remember. It made a right mess, not just of the car, of everything. And then left. He fled the scene. So he was arrested and convicted for basically leaving a mess. He claims, because he's transgender, he claims that as he was dressed up as a woman, he felt vulnerable, because he says, I don't know whether this is established or just him saying it, but he says after an earlier incident that he was raped. So that's what caused it. But the judge didn't buy it. But that's, yeah, so he has got a criminal conviction for basically abandoning the scene of a car crash. Although thankfully no one was involved other than himself. But yeah, it would make it odd that he will be able to find a cushier seat, but there will be others chicken running who presumably will be able to, and that's what I'm saying. It's causing a lot of aggro, because you've already got, if you imagine the Parliamentary Party, the Tory Parliamentary Party, so you've already got some MPs there who are they're losing their seats all day, all night. The likes of Jonathan Gullis, Brendan Lee Clark, and Leanderthal, they're all losing their seats. That's all there is to it. And I don't think any of us here would mourn that. But then there are other Tory MPs who are going to lose their seats, but they're in winnable seats. And they will be aggrieved at the fact that it used to be a safe seat and is not anymore. But then you'll have other ones. You'll have backbench MPs who are in safe seats and they should be fine. And let's say they do their job well enough, they're all fine, but they don't really have a big profile. And they are now worrying about the fact that maybe someone with a higher profile who's now in a vulnerable seat has eyes on their safe seat. And they may not appreciate that one. Although I will say this, if Jamie Wallace is after a safe Tory seat in England, Henley hasn't selected its candidate yet. And Boris Johnson, I'm not sure he's showing any signs that he wants. I thought Boris Johnson would want the Henley seat, because he used to be the MP for Henley before he went off to become Mayor of London. Then he came back for Uxbridge and South Ruislip. The guy who took over as the MP of Henley from Boris Johnson is stepping down. So the seat's there for a candidate. And because Boris Johnson bought a house, a mansion, in Henley, or at least close to it. I don't know the local area, but it's at least close to it. I assumed that he was going to get himself made the chicken run himself to become Henley's MP. I don't know whether that is still the case. I mean, taking up this job with GB News, for example, would seem at odds with that. It may be that he's decided he can't be asked to try and get back into Parliament. In which case, Jamie Wallace could maybe go sniffing around Henley. Who knows? Phil thinks there's a good chance Mogg will be out. There is a very decent chance Mogg will be out. Not so sure as the majority is big and the challenge is not clear. Right. So I need to do a video on this, actually, about majorities. So if I'm just going to get Tamworth election results up. So Tamworth was one of the by-elections we had last week. So a week ago. Do you know what? When you say a week's a long time in politics, It's 1 week ago that we got those by-election results. It seems like longer to me. I don't know what it's like to everyone else. It seems like way longer to me. Now, if I look at Tamworth's election results, right? So Labour have now won it with a majority of just over 5% of the vote, right? But that's a by-election. So in the 2019 general election, the Conservative candidate, Chris Pincher, won with 66.3% of the vote, and Labour had 23.7% of the vote, and everyone else was way below that. So that sounds absolutely massive. He had over a 32% majority. So that sounds like a really, really safe seat. But if you go back to 2017, Chris Pincher won with 61% of the vote, and Labour had 34.8% of the vote. Now, that's still a comfortable win for Chris Pincher in Tamworth, but it's a much smaller majority. When people are looking at the majorities that their MP currently has, I would urge you not to look at the 2019 elections. I would look at I wouldn't exclude the 2019 ones. I would look at the last, going right back to 2005, really, because there's a few things to look out for. First of all, 2019 screwed a lot of things up. Really did screw a lot of things up. So you ended up with the Conservatives winning absolutely massive majorities in some seats where ordinarily it'd be much more vulnerable. Just all that combination of Brexit and Corbyn really had people abandoning Labour and not flocking to the Conservatives in large numbers, because I keep saying, in 2019, Boris Johnson only won about an extra 300,000 votes compared to 2017 with Theresa May. But a lot of people abandoned Labour. And the difference created these huge majorities. So I would say, don't look at 2019 in isolation. Look at all of them. Now, let's have a look at Jacob Rees-Moggs. The other thing to bear in mind, though, is although looking at historical results is way better than just the last one, you should also be mindful that some constituencies, their demographics can change. And also, I'm going to show you something else as well in a bit. Also, the Conservatives really are in for a once-in-a-century pounding here. So if I look at North East Somerset, it's not even that big. No, Jacob Rees-Mogg got 50.4% of the vote. Now, okay, the Labour candidate only got 24.2%. I'm going to tell you, if you're only getting 50% of the vote in 2019, at the next election, you are vulnerable. Because remember, there was no real tactical voting going on in 2019. There's going to be a lot of it going on in the next election. I mean, if you look at the one before, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Jacob Rees-Mogg actually lost vote share. He lost vote share in North East Somerset, and the Lib Dems gained a load. They just didn't gain anywhere near enough to even get into second place. So. But if you look at, it, hovering round about the 50% mark it's not that strong. Wanangi Pega saying, really wish Labour could expand outside Exeter and Plymouth in the southwest. Dreaming, I know, but so many are pissed off at the Tories, even down here. Shame Torbay didn't follow the trend from other local elections. I mean, in the southwest, wouldn't the Lib Dems be in for a shout with some of those seats, though? But I'm just going to have a quick look at something else as well. Now, and this is really big. We've got to go back over 100 years, because what's going to happen at the next, like 2019 was like one for the history books, right? What happened in 2019 with dozens of Labour seats, traditionally safe Labour seats, rolling over was really quite spectacular. It's not happened before. What is going to happen at the next election is next level. But it's not unprecedented. Now, let us go back in time to 1900, right? In the year 1900, the Conservative Party, led by the Marquess of Salisbury, back when they had Lords doing it, won with 135 seat majority, right? 130. This is before Labour had only been established in 1900, so they weren't really in the mix. So 1900, the birth year of the Labour Party, the Conservatives won with 135 seat majority. That's a really big majority, right? Bear in mind, we talk about Boris Johnson's 2019 majority, that was 80. This was 135, right? Granted, they had a few extra seats. There were 670 seats in Parliament then, but it's not much different, 650 now. Now, at the very next election, the Conservatives lost. And when I say they lost, I mean they got absolutely pounded. They went from 135 seat majority to the Liberal Party taking over with 129 seat majority. That collapse wasn't just random. It was caused by the fact that in 1900, the Conservatives, well, even a bit before it actually, they were dining out on their success in the Boer War, which was one of the all wars are fairly grubby, but this was like one of the grubbiest wars we've fought, right? Where, amongst other things, we invented the concentration camp. But it all started to go sour. And then the Conservatives had nothing else because their entire appeal was based on this foreign operation. And it all collapsed. And so they collapsed. So the same thing is going to happen at the next election. The Conservatives built everything around Brexit and they're still trying it. And it's failing really badly. The economy's tanking. They seem to have no answer. The NHS is collapsing. Well, Brexit was supposed to save the NHS. It's absolutely collapsed. Everything's going badly wrong. And just to cap it all, they've got idiots in charge. At least back in the early 1900s, the Conservatives had normal politicians in charge. Now they've got idiots. Jacob Rees-Mogg's voice is the sort of voice that makes the sound of nail scratching on a chalkboard sound like heaven. Well, it's just a bit low energy, isn't it, really? I'm amazed, utterly amazed that he manages to be a presenter on any show, whether GB News or anyone. But there you go. Walt asking, will GB News be worth watching when they announce the next general election results? Hopefully Boris will be doing it. Can't wait for the excuses. Boris Johnson, I think, is going to love it. I think Boris Johnson's absolutely going to love it. There are plenty of people, political commentators, that specifically position themselves as attacking everyone. Like they just hate everyone. And the beauty of that is it doesn't matter who wins. You are their opponent. So you build up a certain audience and you keep that audience. You know, Boris Johnson can attack the Conservative Party now. He probably won't do it as aggressively as Nadine Dorries is, but he can look at things and try and sound supportive, but say, well, I'm not really sure why they're doing that. And, they're doing that and I started this and now they're not carrying on with it. I don't really know why. But when Labour come in, he can completely go to town. At the end of the day, what is he on GB News for? To attract viewers. What's going to attract viewers to GB News? It's not information, is it? It's outrage. GB News sells outrage. Boris Johnson will love doing that. In fact, Boris Johnson, his entire job at GB News would be made way more difficult if the Conservatives win the election. I mean, how ridiculous would that be? Because then they'd have won under the leadership of the person who basically deposed him. Even though there was Liz Truss in charge. It was Sunak who was seen as the one who deposed him. So, but there we go. Say Jacob Rees-Mogg could whine for England. There's no problem filling airtime, moaning about how it's someone else's fault. But that's absolutely perfect for a place like GB News. Because that's what they want. That's what their viewers, as far as I can tell, want. I mean, I've not done a great study of their viewers, either of them. But, it seems to me it's one of those, it's like being online, isn't it? It's like a YouTube channel or anything. Outrage is really good. I mean, stoking outrage is the way to get loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of views. It's actually quite hard to try and do it in a more... I mean, I know that even I'm sort of... I mean, I'm not exactly trying to be... what's the word? Unbiased at all. Shouldn't really have taken me too long to think of that word. But at the same time, you know, you just try and explain things rather than going, look, they've done this thing, isn't it outrageous? Nads and Boris run into each other in GB News canteen. No, Nads doesn't work for GB News. She works for Talk TV. She's the other one. She's their competitor. Unless something's changed. Has it? I don't think it has. I think Richard Tice is going to be working on GB News now, unless he's already started. I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's going to be on GB News. Joy... Oh, hang on. I don't know if that's to me or someone else. Sorry. Yeah, so it's actually quite funny because the way GB News described it is they got this great coup getting Boris Johnson. Oh, he's the one that all the TV stations want. I'm thinking, I don't think it is, you know. I don't think it is. The only other TV station I could think that might have conceivably want Boris Johnson was Talk TV. Who else would want Boris Johnson? Because this is the problem. Like, Boris Johnson has this, like, mini cult following. It's nothing like Donald Trump in America, but he has this mini cult following, right? But it's not really notable in the wider public. So, you know, he just like any number of similar people with a really small niche cult, you know, it's amplified on social media. But in terms of the public don't like Boris Johnson. We had polling last week that showed that Rishi Sunak was still more popular than Boris Johnson. Rishi Sunak is the Prime Minister right now, presiding over all the mess right now. And yet it's not like a majority of the public are thinking, oh, Boris wasn't that bad. No, the majority of the public still prefer Sunak to Johnson, and Sunak's awful. So the public that thinks Sunak's awful still prefer him to Boris Johnson. So Boris Johnson wouldn't have a ready audience on BBC or ITV or Channel 4. So GB News and Talk TV is where it's at for him. And in terms of it being a great coup for them, I don't even think that. They paid him. He wants money, right? He's after earnings. I'll tell you what I am surprised at. The reports that what he's going to get paid for GB News is between, well, it's mid to high six-figure sum, which basically means somewhere between £500,000 and under £1 million, right? I'm surprised at that because, although it sounds like very nice money, don't get me wrong, he's getting paid more than that by the Daily Mail. And the Daily Mail work is easier. So I'm surprised they've managed, that's the coup part, that they managed to nab him for what sounds like less money than the Daily Mail for more work. Because he's actually got to go to the studio for GB News. And then he's got to somehow hold people's attention for however long the show is, half an hour, whatever it is, I don't know. Oh, Joy, go on, sorry, maybe it was to me. Watch 5 p.m. video. We can go into other topics now, of course, by the way. Ask for a solution. I think the post from Lezet Specky, hang on, sorry, it's flicking away. It goes a good way to argue way through. I certainly agree with him, and also points I support. You'd have to say what that is. I don't know whether it's, you need to be able to do it really simply. I wonder what format Boris's fantasy on GB News will be. Will he just tell jokes and mumble, or will he interview people and take phone calls? So he won't take phone calls. That'd be a mad thing to do. I imagine it being, I don't think, see, I said on my video, I don't think he'll be a Lee Anderson flop. I think he can make it work, but I don't think he can do it on his own. I don't think he can solo host a program. Because he will just waffle and bumble and talk absolute shit. I don't think he can maintain it for half an hour. So I think he'll need someone else. He'll need a wingman, right? Or it might be like Jacob Rees-Mogg, where he gets different people to debate with, but it turns out to be he's debating with someone who's got remarkably large amount of support for Boris Johnson. He's not at all going to try and trip him up. So he may end up doing a lot of that because that'll work for him. I can see him doing that, you know, a two-way discourse, almost like a podcast. like a two-way discussion, something like that. So I agree Boris is perfect for GB News. He's going to feel like a pig in muck. Wish they'd employed him a few years back. We could have skipped his PM-ship. Well, unfortunately, they didn't exist there. One angry pagan saying, how do you reckon Labour would likely deal with the lack of builders and engineers we have? Migration on top of more further education in areas. It is an issue. It's quite bizarre because I have a semi look into the construction industry because my partner works in the construction industry. And whereas last year they were, their products were flying off the shelves, so to speak, or off the pallets, this year they're struggling. So that suggests to me that there's obviously been a downturn in construction, but not necessarily that we don't have extra capacity in terms of workers, because if we had them last year, why can't we have them this year? But ultimately, yes, if we're going to significantly increase construction, there are limiting factors, and obviously qualified people in construction industry, builders and so on, is going to be one of them. All we can do is do what we've done in the past, and we're going to have to, get more people from overseas, which means paying them more, and of course making the visas easier to get. So that we go. Missed the explanation beforehand, pointing out why I posted the post. Yes, but I will look out for it now, Joey. Sorry. I get a lot of comments, particularly on these ones. And if I'm talking about one thing, I tend to sort of then focus on that. GB News said that Johnson will be covering the US elections. Will he bat for Trump? Yeah, of course he will. Like, the thing is, he's not even going to... He doesn't need to pretend to be impartial. It's GB News. Do what he wants. And the thing is, like, think about the GB News. Now, the reason why GB News have recruited Boris Johnson is not just to front a show. It's to bring an extra audience. So Boris Johnson will be bringing his audience, right? But he'll also be talking to the established GB News audience. And let's be honest, Nigel Farage carries GB News, really, doesn't he? Particularly with Dan Wootton gone. And he has no problems being, a full-on Trump supporter. So, yeah, I think Boris Johnson will as well. He'll have no issues with that. Absolutely. I don't even know that there'd be any real doubt with that. He can debate with Nadine Dorries. Oh, yeah, that'll be fun, won't it? Nadine Dorries, or would he ask questions of Nadine Dorries? I don't know. Also, as the COVID inquiry brings more of the poor decisions he made, I would imagine he'll be even more unpopular. He should be, quite frankly. I mean, what needs to happen is that those COVID inquiry revelations need to be reported more widely. At the moment, they're not. It needs to be the sort of Partygate level of interest. So there needs to be a window of opportunity for the media to actually start reporting on it all. Remember, when Partygate was reported a long time after it happened. Long time. Bazakuda saying there, the biggest problem for Labour is likely to be the civil service has been run down. Are there enough people to do the work for all the new legislation? No. Not everything's run down. They're going to have to... every single government department, including the overall bureaucracy, is going to have to be built back up, I think. What will Frogage and Bozo do if and when Trump goes to jail? They'll probably build a little shrine to him and say, because it's then easy, isn't it, for them? It's easy. So they can obviously disparage Joe Biden, sleepy Joe Biden, and then whoever is the Republican candidate, if it's not the orange one, they can just say, oh, well, Trump would have been marvellous at this. Look at the way they cocked that up. I mean, they're still better than sleepy Joe Biden, but bloody hell, if only we had the big guns. And then if Biden wins, they can say, well, of course they won because they had this puppet in charge of the Republican campaign when they should have had Trump. And they can blame everyone that shopped Trump because at the end of the day, the people sending Trump down, it's not Biden. They might try that angle a bit. It's not Biden. It's his own people. It's Donald Trump's own people sending him down. M saying, always dislike Boris Johnson, but anyway, Blessed Samhain for Tuesday. I don't know if you saw my comments earlier now. Sorry. I missed a lot of those. Employers in the UK have decided they don't like training. There's not enough incentives and the staff get pinched by other firms. So, I mean, I don't know what it's like in a lot of other industries. I know in education, training went out the windows from 2010. It was noticeable. I had two halves to my teaching career, one under Labour and one under the Conservatives. In the first half, training was expected. You had to proactively seek out training courses to go on. Not just in-house training in the school or college. You actively were supposed to, and there was funding for it, and it was expected. After 2010, all of a sudden, if you even wanted to go on a particular training course, it'd be like, is it free? No, well, you can't go then. They would pay for your travel. That was it. That was what the funding was for. Pretty much from 2010, obviously it took an extra year, but pretty much from when the Tories came in, the training funding for teachers was gone. Immediately cut. Every interviewee should ask about Boris about the pandemic. He can't handle criticism on his own sake. They're not going to get people like that on. They will not get on people to debate with him. They will get on people who are already of the same mind. It's literally going to be the Lee Anderson, Jonathan Gullis. In fact, you'll probably get Jonathan Gullis on. He won't feed him beans, though. He'll feed him cheese and chorizo. But, that's what he'll do. He'll get Jonathan Gullis on to talk about how great Boris Johnson is. And he's already said what he's going to talk about. He's going to play on the fact he's really popular in Ukraine. He is, but for goodness knows what reason. He's going to bang on about China. He's already said that. Goodness knows what international incidents he'll cause there. Any more videos planned concerning the war in Ukraine, especially with all the attention on Gaza crisis? No, I did do one last week. There's never any videos planned for those things because essentially the channel is British politics. It's just sometimes international news impacts on British politics, and that's when I'll talk about it. So it's never planned. It's always just at some point this will happen. Sorry, I'm just trying to see if, because otherwise it'd be really annoying if Joey's posted that thing again and I've missed it. No, she hasn't. The lack of training, Brexit, and no industrial strategy. Yeah, there's absolutely no industrial strategy at the moment. It's ridiculous. Why the UK has such low productivity and falling further behind? Yes. And we may have another year or so of it. It's the falling behind that concerns me. That's, if it was almost like, let's say we were having this 2020 pandemic right now in the last year, it's like, okay, well, the rest of the world's knackered as well. But when the rest of the world is sort of recovering and we're not, yes, falling further behind is where the problem is. At the same time, I don't know, like politically, it may be that Labour then have easier wins. Like, when you're on your arse, a small improvement's a big win, isn't it? It says, in private sector, training is generally very poor, cut since the late 80s. It's coming back due to staff shortages. It is better in the public sector, but got worse since 2010. Well, the thing is in the public... sorry, I forgot who it was now. Someone mentioned, actually, the problem is with training is if you fear that you train staff and then they just end up going working for a competitor and you've paid for their training, that's a bit of a bugger. Whereas with the public sector, you can still look at it as an investment. So if you, for example, train up a teacher and they go and work in a school, if they go and work in a private school, they're still working in a school. They're still, as long as they don't leave the country. And then if some leave the country, well, that's just tough luck. So you could argue that public one should be, public training should be better because it's in the government's interest to train people just in general, isn't it? Even if they don't end up working for the public sector, the country still, and therefore the government still gets some benefit. Do I have a HUD up in the videos? I haven't done. There is a video I have planned. Unfortunately, I'm waiting on a couple of very important props. So I usually do a Halloween-themed video for Halloween, of course. And usually it's a bit cringeworthy. Well, I'm not saying the one I've planned isn't. But unfortunately, there's two really important props I need. and I'd sent off for them, and they haven't arrived. Now, if they arrive in time for Tuesday, then it will be fine. Otherwise, I'll still probably do it. It's just it won't be on Halloween. It may be that it's in sometime in November, but it may involve wearing a hood. But I haven't done up until now. At least I don't think I have. Oh, well done on the shorts, Phil. Think I've got it sussed already. No, I haven't. Not even close. Absolutely not even close. I can sort of go through what obviously I've only got like not even 2 weeks worth of data, but I can go over what I have found. I think. Hang on. Saw in my analytics, quite interesting. So here we go. Oh no, that's the wrong one. So, of my viewers, there are 2% watching shorts only. That's actually over just, hold on, that's the last 7 days. I could do it over the last, yeah, that's better. So and there's 12% who watch both. Now, shorts are a very different type of content. And there's 2 things I would say about it. First of all, it is about attracting an audience that will not watch the long form videos. So that figure, that 2% ideally wants to go. It won't go up like massively. The long form is not only the main thing on YouTube, it's my main thing. So it will never, and I'm obviously producing my aim is to produce 1 short a day, but I produce like 2 or 3 videos a day. But I could do with that going up higher. But the other thing as well is shorts really need to attract whereas a long form video is fine attracting tens of thousands of views, your short wants to attract hundreds of thousands. So I'll have sussed it when it's getting 100,000 views per video. That's when I'll have sussed it. I'm not wearing my mask now then. I wear it in shops and things. I don't wear it in the house. When I go gaming or if I go into a shop, I wear my mask. Obviously, there are certain situations where I risk assess it and you can't. Like when I went to the Labour Party conference, for example, when I was doing those events, I didn't wear a mask then. But that's risk. I hardly ever do a thing where I'll be indoors, not with a mask. Maybe Labour could employ kids banging on doors on Halloween to impart a Labour message before they ask for sweets. I think that might be I think that might get into a lot of trouble for child exploitation. What about you? I always think it's bad enough. You know, when you see a protest and you see a kid who can't possibly know what's going on with a placard being used as some sort of device, I always feel a little bit funny about that. I sort of think on one hand, you may have had to take the kid anyway because, it's not worth getting childcare for something like that. But I always feel a little bit, that kid doesn't actually know. Like if it's like a 10-year-old or something, it might be different. But like when it's a toddler, it's like they don't actually know what's going on, do they? But anyway. So I'm going to keep looking at the chat. Hang on, I've had that other one from Joy, but not the explanation. But anyway. I'll tell you what Labour can do now. Okay, here's an idea. Let's see what you think of this. So there was, where was it? I think it was in the Times. And there was it was discussing various things around messaging and Labour, which is really refreshing to read in the mainstream media because, I keep wanting to bang on about Labour and messaging. And in one thing, it suggested that Keir Starmer might do a podcast, to get out, so people can see him when he's not, because there's this attitude that is a bit too stilted when he does interviews because he's not a polished media performer. I think he's better than Sunak, to be fair, but yeah, okay. So whereas he came across very well on the James O'Brien podcast, The Full Disclosure. So you might like to do more of that. All I would say is give me a call. I'll sort it out for you. But anyway, it said in there, you'd think of doing a podcast, and I thought that'd be a brilliant idea. And then it said there's a lot of people in his office or something who think that they can't imagine anything worse. And I thought, no, it's a bloody brilliant idea. You should do that. But of course, you know, if they think it'd actually be a bad idea, they won't do, which is ridiculous. I don't understand why he wouldn't, because that, honestly, that James O'Brien full disclosure with Keir Starmer was really good. You know, and he could easily do things like that on a regular basis. Get someone to act as a sort of foil for him, and do his own. You know, you've got all these. You've got obviously Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart. They're quite successful on their podcast. Now you've got George Osborne and Ed Balls trying to do the same thing. I'm not really interested in that. Get Keir Starmer and me. I'll sort him out. Be superb. But get Keir Starmer and someone doing a podcast. I think that would be an amazing idea. Absolutely amazing. And, you know, why not? You've got Conservative MPs being broadcast now on not so much the GB News TV station. I don't really think they get that many views. But, you know, they're being blown out on social media all over the place. Why shouldn't Keir Starmer do the same thing? Is Labour going to have anyone left to go knocking on doors? Yeah, loads. Anyway, regarding the Farage Coote saga, NatWest haven't done anything wrong except leaking information illegally. You can't really say they haven't done anything wrong apart from break the law. But yeah, okay. It was necessary to counter Farage's lies. Yeah, well, he's still not happy about. Yeah, the reports that is, you know, it's complete whitewash. It was complete whitewash. They tried to debank him, which isn't even a word. I tried to use the word debank on Spelling Bee last week, wouldn't have it. And he said it's absolutely disgraceful to debank him because of my political views. Look, it says so here, and it's like, no, it doesn't. What it says in the Cootes records is because Nigel Farage is seen as like a political agitator, and I think grifter is the word they used, that he represents a reputational risk to the bank. That was why. But, you know, they're not interested. Wendy saying, I watched the shorts in case I missed a major point from the main video. Yeah, you're not going to miss a major point you're not going to get a major point in the shorts. Honestly, I have occasionally done videos for Twitter at times when I've thought, well, maybe I should do stuff for Twitter. And there it's like 2 minutes. I know you can pay to have it longer, but it's like 2 minutes. And I always felt that was really constraining. When I've done videos for Twitter, it's been a case of doing it and having to cut it down, and also it takes quite a long time. Doing a 1 minute video, you can't say anything. You can't say anything at all. But as far as I'm concerned, the reason I'm doing it is like because there are people out there who will have an interest in politics, and they're not going to watch the long form. They'll watch the shorts on their mobile. They're not going to watch the long form. And I'm just thinking, if Labour are not going to try and get through to these people, then, you know, it's just a case of doing what you can. When you say, I beg to differ, it is a banking term. I use it all the time. Wish we could debank more often, is it? Right, okay. I'll take your word for it. Tell Spelling Bee then, because they wouldn't have it. I think it'd be much more relaxed in a podcast. It'd appear more relatable, I'm sure. Well, okay, here's the thing. So what it said in the Times is that Starmer's fear is of the difficult. And now we know, obviously, we know recent times he can sometimes make a bit of a mess of interview questions. It doesn't happen as much as you would think, but when it does happen, it's going to be amplified to the max, right? So if he comes across as a bit too stilted, was to use their word, simply because he's wary of the next question instead of focusing on the question that's just been asked of him, then yes, a podcast where he's doing it with someone who's not going to try and trip him up would be the thing to do. And do it on their YouTube channel. Might get some bloody viewers then. But yeah, I mean, like I said, when you looked at that full disclosure, he was more relaxed. He was very happy to do that. So he should do more of that. You know, you can easily pick topic, because if the aim of it as well is to discuss his role in terms of forming Labour policy as well as other stuff, he can like discuss things on a more personal level. I think it is an absolutely stunning idea. And honestly, I could easily do it for him. You know, I mean, like I keep looking at it. You know, at the moment, in the last 4 weeks, I've had like 750,000 unique viewers. Actually, it'd be more than that because that's unique accounts. So if you've got people watching together on the same account, that's more. But at least 750,000 people. Over 60% of whom are in the UK. So it's like, you know, getting on for 500,000 unique accounts and probably about 500,000 people in the UK. And that's just me. That's just me doing my stuff. You know, you get Keir Starmer on. Absolutely guaranteed it'd be a rip-roaring success. Guaranteed. Vivian, I think the shorts are a good way to highlight a point, reach younger people. I like them. It is. Let me have a look, audience. It is. The demographics are shifted a little bit more towards the younger end. Bear in mind, I mean, as those stats say, 2% are watching the shorts but not the long form so far. 12% are watching both. So those 12% are probably people who are already watching the long form and now watch the shorts as well. But if I have a look, so yeah, at the moment it's still, if the shorts demographics, but I think that's because mostly it's people who watch these as well. It's still very much skewed towards the older end, but not as much as the long form videos. There's more, you know, so I can see, for example, there's like, on the shorts, there's 14% of my total views from people 34 years or younger. But if I do that for the videos, it's like not even 13%. So it's not much difference, but there is a little bit of a difference. Susan, I really like Marina Perkis. She really cuts the chase. Boris would be mincemeat. Well, Marina, he might not want to do a podcast with Marina Perkis. She's not like she wants a Labour government just because she wants rid of the Tories, right? But she's not actually. She could ask awkward questions, but it's, you know, he could do it with her, certainly. So he's saying, I saw that interview with James O'Brien. He came across really well. Yeah, so he will. If you put him in a position where he's just talking about things clearly, instead of questions that, like, if you can stop him being worried about what's going to be splashed across the Daily Telegraph the next day, then yes, he may come across really well. It could really be a shot in the arm for on the personality stakes. He should do it. I would write to Labour and say, you should do this and I will help you and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, you write to Labour and it goes into a black hole. They haven't ever responded to me, so there's no point. You're in the 12%. I mean, I thought that was actually quite a lot. There'd be 12% that sort of watch both, and there's only 84% that watch neither. So straight away, that's, you know, yeah, so it's quite interesting. Have I watched plenty of shorts to know what good looks like? So I have tried to watch some shorts. I'll tell you what I'm finding difficult to find. Maybe someone can help. I'm finding it difficult to find good political shorts. That's the problem, isn't it? Is there a politics channel that does them well? I've not found them. Labour have put shorts on their channel. They're not good. And by and large, they've had the odd one, because they've done them for a bit. They've had the odd one get decent number of views. Although, even then, it's not like really good views for a short. But most of their stuff, I'm just going to look it up again, is getting fewer views than mine. Let's have a look here. So it looks like they're shorts. So the problem as well with the shorts is, like, basically they did a load of them at the conference. And then that's it. They haven't done any. So they're not making a thing of it either. But like 2.6 thousand views, 1.5 thousand views. And you can see where they're going wrong as well. Like, I haven't cracked shorts, but I can tell you what's wrong. Hold on. Let me show you this. Right. So this is Labour's YouTube page with the shorts, right? So look at this, right? This one, so David Lammy, it says David Lammy at Labour Party conference. What's that about? What's he talking about? Why would someone click on that? It's got a picture of David Lammy, really tiny, right? Because obviously you can't really do thumbnails for it. That's annoying that you can't really do thumbnails. David Lam, that's what it's called, David Lammy at Labour Party conference. Well, I don't know what that's about. Actually, when you watch the video, it's not about anything. So 1,500 views. Now, if you find one that did well, so 10,000 views, we'll get shovels in the ground, crane, blah, blah, blah. Time to get Britain building again. It's a bit more interesting, but also it's from Starmer's speech. So 10,000 views is pathetic, really. They did, if I just go to the popular ones. Right, let's just cut to the chase. 1.1 million views, right? Brilliant. And it's a clip of someone else talking. This is from Question Time. That's it. That's a brilliant number of views, 1.1 million, but it's someone else. Why can't they do their own content and get that many views? You know, this is at least a Labour MP, Jonathan Ashworth there, look. 240,000 views, decent number of views. But again, it's just him. It's a clip from bloody Question Time. So there we go. I mean, all of these ones, like you look at them, all these ones with loads of views. Someone talking on Question Time, someone talking on Question Time. Rishi's clip from PMQs, another clip from PMQs. This is Rishi Sunak being interviewed. Clips from PMQs. But there's none of their actual content. This is of their own content. I know this is Keir Starmer talking, but it's at PMQs. In terms of specifically for the short, 24,000 views is the best they've done with their own unique content. That's just rubbish. And even that's a clip from a longer video, which is fine, but it's terrible. I can't understand how they can be this bad. The Express and Mail clip bits out of Question Time. They're like, yeah, a lot of people clip things out of Question Time. It's really good to get around social media. And as I say, those are the only ones that seem to be doing well. Clips of PMQs, clips of Question Time. What about their own content? They're not producing their own content. Did I get a reply from the Speaker's office? No, I did not. So for those who don't know, when Jill Mortimer did her dog whistling, but more specifically referenced a live criminal case, which MPs are not supposed to do, and it specifically says that parliamentary privilege does not cover you for that. But it does say in the guidance, when I read it, that the Speaker can show discretion on it. In other words, the Speaker can decide that in that particular instance, it's acceptable, or they can tell them to sit down and shut up. Or using the parliamentary language, which is, can you take your seat or retake your seat? So I wrote to the Speaker's office to ask, to point out that, you know, she seems to have like breached this particular rule. And I noticed from the guidance the Speaker has discretion. And I asked, oh, hello. I just had an interesting email thinking about it. If I look at, let's look where it is. Yeah, so Speaker's Office. I'll read it out to you because it was the last thing anyway. I refer to the comments made by the Honourable Jill Mortimer MP. I did the full title. During the Prime Minister's questions of October 18th, the Honourable Member referred to the case of a man charged with a serious criminal offence for which a trial has not yet taken place. She also appeared to presume the man's guilt. Referring to the sub judice, apparently, note, published by the House of Commons Library in 2007, it seems to emphasise the importance of members not bringing up matters which are awaiting adjudication in the courts. It further stipulates that these matters are within the discretion of the Speaker of the House to rule on. Given that you did not instruct the member to resume her seat as she was breaching sub judice, may I ask why you thought that her statement was considered important enough to be made a special case? Thank you for your kind consideration. Regards, blah. No, I have not received a response. So this is over a week. Obviously, I'm not now going to receive a response anytime soon because Parliament is prorogued. It will not be back until like November the 7th or something for the King's speech. So we will see if I ever get one, but I have not got one as yet. Right, last couple, because we've sort of run out of time, I'm afraid. Political parties have to be held accountable in terms of the decision they make, no matter what wing of the political spectrum they're on. I don't know what that's in reference to, but yes, I would agree with that. In fact, it's actually quite interesting. As a result of both Peter Bone's suspension and Crispin Blunt's arrest, the question was asked, I think it was Gillian Keegan, you know, well effing done Gillian Keegan, was asked of her, is there a problem with this sort of culture in the Tory party. She said there wasn't. I would actually, to be fair, say we should suggest that there's maybe a bit of a culture of this amongst MPs. Because although Conservative MPs seem to produce like the greatest number of them, I don't think we should just focus on them. I think there's a problem with MPs in general. I think it's worse in the Conservative Party. But I think the problem is if you focus just on the Conservative Party, you're like taking the attention from the fact actually people can commit these offences in different parties as well. I think there needs to be a real proper look at the culture of behaviour amongst MPs in general, not picking on any particular party, and actually work out what you do about it. Because the next offender could well be a Labour MP. You know, why has Blunt been arrested? So he was arrested it was just for discussions, like, you know, but it was related to an accusation of rape and drugs possession. The drugs were taken off his person. So there was a substance removed from his person, which has been sent off to the lab for analysis. I would have thought they'd have had that analysis back by now. So I haven't seen anything in the news to see if it was anything. Oh, your statement was in regards to media bias. Now it helps the Tories escape accountability. Yeah, the media needs to do a much better job, but the only way to deal with that is regulation. Regulation, and more regulation. Yes, the clocks do go back tonight, indeed. Last question then, Angry Pagan. Who in Labour would I say has potential in terms of oratory, if there are any? Oh, there are some. Rachel Reeves is good. David Lamb is good. They could easily do like podcasts with Starmer. Oh, yeah, they'd be good. Ed Miliband's decent, you know. He's all right. Just don't give him a bacon sandwich. He's fine. There might be a few others that I've not really seen properly road tested. But I would say if I was to like suggest a team who should like chop and change with Keir Starmer on this podcast, you know, maybe they can cycle around each week, Keir Starmer with, you know, I would suggest David Lammy, Rachel Reeves and Ed Miliband. In terms of backbench MPs, does he... Wes Streeton's a star media performer. Ah, right. I'm gonna say yes and no there. He's very good in debates. He will absolutely call out a Tory in a debate in question time. But he's a bit divisive for my liking. He's a bit too in your face. Whereas he like treats everyone as if he doesn't see them directly as an ally, he immediately treats them as a hostile enemy. So I think Wes Streeting needs to like improve his manner for me. I don't think he'd be good enough. He's too defensive. Do you know what I mean? He's far too fortress mentality for me. But anyway, there it is. We'll leave that there. Thanks very much for coming on, everyone. Have a very good evening. And until next time, I'll see you later.